Hey there, welcome back to another video. I am Ramona, and we're doing a what's the scariest experience that you've had? Possibly paranormal, possibly supernatural, or just weird. First story. Not very scary, just odd. A couple of years ago, I was asleep at home having a dream where I was on a train looking for a friend of mine. In the dream, I had exhausted every place to look, and for some reason, I was adamant that I needed to talk to him immediately. In the dream, I ran to my friend's father, whom I had asked about my friend's location, as he was nowhere to be found. At this point, I get a phone call from my friend wanting to know why I had called his father. To be clear, I did not have his father's phone number, never have, and my phone showed no placed calls in the history. My friend had been with his dad and recognized my number, as his dad didn't have me as a contact either. We compared notes the next day, and his father's phone showed the call history on his phone as well. To this date, we just shrug it off as a freak occurrence. Haven't seen stories about similar situations, really, either. This one is a bit of a long one. It happened maybe 7 years ago. Some background: I'm a fairly religious person. I'm strong in my Christian faith, and I've believed in angels and demons. I have a very bad relationship with my father. He was emotionally and physically abusive to me and my mom when I was very young. He ended up seeking professional help towards the end of his life, and we reconciled, but the damage had already been done, and we never quite were as close as he wanted because I never fully got over being afraid of him. He fell into a diabetic coma and died back in my sophomore year of high school. A year after high school, I was dropping off my then girlfriend at home. Excuse me. She and her family both swore their house was haunted. My girlfriend said something had put its hands around her face and choked her while she was doing homework. Her mom and other family said that they'd seen white figures with red eyes, spooky stuff like that. I dropped her off at home one night, and she was really spooked. Her family was all asleep, and she said she had a bad feeling about something. I was pretty young in my faith, but I offered to pray with her that God would protect her from anything bad. She said she felt better and went inside. So I turned around and had the worst feeling ever, like something was watching me and it didn't like me. Her family's house was out in the desert off a dirt road, and felt like there had been something out there in the desert. I felt like if I kept looking for it, I would see it, so I decided to watch the ground as I got to my car. I got back into town and felt better once I got home. I went to sleep and had a dream I was in my grandparents' home, but it was actually just an old folks' home that looked like their house. My dad was there, and I guess I was visiting him, but he was off, like staring into space. I started feeling really uneasy, so I could go up to him to say goodbye. He turns his head really slowly to catch my eyes, and his head inflates. His eyes start to shrink, and his mouth stretches really wide, and he lunges at me and latches onto my arm and starts gnawing at it. I shake him off and run out of the house down the driveway, and I turn around, and he's standing at the garage door. Back to normal. He just has this look on his face like he was just trying to prove a point. I woke up, and I felt like I had turned my head to my left. I was going to see someone in my room watching me. I sat in bed for a good 10 minutes, just staring straight up until I felt comfortable enough to look around. I didn't see anything, and I started praying like crazy until I fell back asleep. It might have just been a regular nightmare, but I definitely felt like there was something in my room with me. And what sucks now is that even though I think my dad, I think of that dream. Not really scary, but definitely supernatural. My father's friend, Mike, married a woman named Nancy a few years ago, and recently her father passed away. He was known for playing tricks with all kinds of kids and grandkids, and would often leave money hidden about their beach house for the kids to find. They decided to sell the house once he passed. Mike noticed that he would still find money left around the house, which was odd since it wasn't there before. I personally find the experience really sweet. Not really creepy, but I have no idea what it was. It was 2 summers ago. We live in a really big house from the 1920s, so it could have been anything. But occasionally I would sit downstairs watching TV. I would hear this big boom as if someone was shutting a dresser drawer or closing a door, even if it was just me at home. It was super weird. Not me, but my mom said that she had a dream shortly after my grandpa had passed away. He told her she was pregnant. She thought it was weird. Shortly after that, she found out she was pregnant with me. I don't know if it's for that reason alone, but his name is also my middle name now. I was 16, home alone, waiting for my girlfriend to get to my house. 2 times I heard a massive amount of knocking. My dog was going crazy both times. But when I went to the door, there wasn't anyone there, but my senior light was on. Or sensor light was on. My room was upstairs, so I took my dog upstairs and waited for my girlfriend there. My dog started going fucking bonkers, running into the hallway outside my bedroom, barking and running in and out of the room. I could hear my mother fucking calling my name. She knew I was not fucking home. I knew she was not fucking home. No one was home, and I'm not schizophrenic, and I have no other known mental illness. I have never experienced anything like this, and have absolutely no explanation. It wasn't like I was even daydreaming. I was fully conscious and heard very clear my mother's voice calling my name from downstairs. She denies being there, calling me to this day, and calls me crazy. I don't know what I heard, but so does my dog. I stayed at a hotel in Israel on a class trip once, and the place was had very creepy vibes from the moment we walked in. I never truly felt comfortable there and kept having nightmares every night. And then I'd hear creepy noises from the halls and vents. Turns out the place was bombed back in 2002 and several people died, which most likely means that it was haunted. Tachypsychia? The ability to see time slow based off a certain event. Was deployed in Iraq in 2004. Had an IED go off next to a vehicle next to me. I was in the gunner turret tucking off, and as it blew, I was able to duck and watch shrapnel fly past my turret at a weirdly slow speed. I never thought about it until I stumbled upon it one night online. Apparently, it happens just like in the movie Wanted. An overdose of natural adrenaline causes the brain to perceive time moving slower than it actually is. This isn't something that is significant or anything, but last year, during fantasy football season, I had a dream that I would start this guy that had basically been on my bench all year. He ended up having a career day, and that was the only week I started him, and he didn't do anything close to that for the rest of the season. I don't believe in ghosts, but this was really easily the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. A couple years ago, I was out smoking a bowl at around 11 p.m., and my father didn't like me smoking, so I usually just smoke when he's asleep. Anyways, it was pitch black, so I couldn't see very far in front of me. As I'm standing there in the darkness, just smoking, I hear what sounded like a very deep growl, anywhere from 5 to 15 feet away. My instincts kicked in, and I just turned around and went back inside quickly. I never went back out to see what was this day. I have no clue what it actually was. It still makes me uncomfortable to think about it. One night, I was making my lunch for school because I wanted to sleep in. It's a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Or peanut butter sandwich. As I put the knife in the sink, I turn around for some reason at the stairs behind me. The kitchen is on the lower floor, partially underground. There's a small wall blocking you from seeing the stairs and anyone coming down. Well, when I had turned around, I saw what looked like a mask. It looked like a Native American mask or anything or something, and I think it was my brother just messing with me. I began to overthink about it, and there was no way my brother could have had a mask that high, wearing it, or just holding it out. I have the image burned into my memory, and it freaks me out a little, since I still live in that house 4 years later. I posted this on a different thread, but my house is haunted, and I have a ton of creepy stories about it. I'll post a quick few. Most recently, I was getting ready for work on a Sunday morning, so no construction workers, no garbage trucks, etc., and everyone in my house was asleep. I heard a noise in the cabinet, opened it, and a wine glass that was perfectly secure in the middle of the shelf flew off the shelf and came right at me. It landed on the counter and did not break. 2. My dad was home alone and threw the laundry down the stairs and heard little boy go, "What was that?" 3. I was home alone one day and kept hearing footsteps running up and down my basement steps. When my dad finally got home, he went to the basement and came upstairs demanding to know why the picture of Jesus was upside down. My family is pretty religious, so no one would have done that. A few years back, I was seeing a girl who lived in a house with a couple of her friends that was built between 1870 and 1890. I just got this weird feeling that whenever I was over there with her, I could never put my finger on it, but it was just an unsettling feeling. Terrible way to explain it, but that's the best I can via typing. Odd thing used to happen to these girls, like things going missing or odd creaks and groans in the house. Nothing to incline the house had a presence, but the girls swore there was something adrift with everything. The only thing I ever noticed was that the beads that they had hanging across the framework of an entrance to the butler's pantry would often sway with no apparent reason. But it was only ever one line. The second one was from the left. I thought it was odd, but at the time I didn't think much of it. However, after staying there a couple of times, I kept having this recurring dream that only ever happened when I stayed there. The dream consisted of me walking through a forest with a voice muttering in the background. Then a sudden and extremely loud, intense roar of what was very reminiscent of wind howling would appear, and something would push me back from behind and grab my ankles and drag me violently towards this black hole in the ground, and I would just awake just prior to falling down in a hot sweat. This happened a dozen times, and at the time I just put down to weird nightmares. However, the last time I had this dream, I awoke in a sweat, and I could almost swear I heard a distant voice telling me to leave. This wasn't even the scary part. I sleep with a top on and went to the bathroom vanity to freshen up after my sweat, and I had a red mark on my back. It was one of those marks you receive when you are whipped or have some sort of pressure applied, like from a bruise. After that, I couldn't stay there anymore, and the girl and I went our separate ways. I really don't believe in the paranormal, but on the belief that my mind has a habit of conjuring fear and paranoia and creating the illusion of something that there really is when there was nothing there. But this whole experience really unsettled me to the point I don't sleep well for months, and even now I just get the goosebumps and shivers typing this. I don't know what to think about, but here it goes. Around 8 years ago, I was in a vacation with my parents and my cousin. My sister couldn't come as she had just started her first job, so she stayed home by herself. When we were children, both my sister and I used to be really close, mainly because we shared a room for my first 7 to 9 years. We used to have our code with taps for asking things like, "Are you already asleep?" "Are our parents asleep?" Stuff like that. She was also doing something or looking for something to do. She was always the first up. So when she was up and wanted me to wake up, she would place her face as close to mine as possible and stare at me. I don't know how long she would stay like this, but I can clearly remember multiple times waking to her doing this. I, of course, would shout or at least panic until realizing it was her. I guess it was fun for her, and I have to admit, I also did it a couple of times. So now we are on our trip, and it's been almost 10 to 12 years since the last time my sister pulled this prank on me. My sister and I are not close as we used to be. We have certainly grown a little apart, but we still love each other. It was the last night of our trip before heading back to our city, and we just find this nice hotel close to the pyramids, which meant no cell phone service. We were sharing a room, my mom and dad in the first bed, and my cousin and I in the other one. At some point around 4 a.m., I woke up to the same old sensation that someone is staring at me, so I opened my eyes and I could clearly see a face. My immediate reaction was to shout, waking my mother up. I have to say that the sensation by itself was really scary, but years of experience with my sister waking me up like that took the greater threat away. So despite me shouting, I wasn't scared. It was too familiar. My mom turned on the light and asked me what happened. I told her that I was pretty sure my sister had just woken me up, and I know I didn't make any sense, but I felt that it was her, though I cannot say I saw her face. I just saw a face, and then it disappeared. Immediately, my mom was really superstitious, and she couldn't sleep after that, so she felt that something was odd, and I couldn't sleep thinking of my sister. Later that day in the morning, we noticed we had missed a lot of calls. My sister was involved in a really bad car accident. Luckily, she only had minor injuries. To this day, I don't know what to make out of that experience. My brain tells me it was just a coincidence. On the other hand, it's the only way I could have thought of my sister sleeping. It was just so real, so between both of us. As an extra, on our previous visit, my parents and sister and I, at the ruins, we would hear some drums. My parents said it was raining and they were playing with the pawns at some point. The drums started playing. Our curiosity also made us follow the sound, getting us deeper and deeper into the jungle. I can't remember why we stopped. We finally made it up to the exit and asked the security guard about the music. He said, "So you heard the drums as well?" He then proceeded to tell us that a lot of people had heard them at different times, and they didn't know what the source was. That's pretty freaky. I like that one. My friends called me one night to go to a basketball game at the Civic Center. My buddy Crazy Legs was driving, and he and I had a rule between all of our friends that I always rode shotgun in his vehicle, and he always rode shotgun in mine. I went out to the car to get in, and something was just telling me not to go. It was like I physically couldn't get in the vehicle. My other friend had already gone out of the front seat and got in the back with my other friend to give me my seat. They gave me the they gave me hell, but I eventually didn't go. Something just physically would not let me get in the car. It was like I was frozen in fear or something. Well, anyways, on my way home from that game that night, they lost control of the vehicle because it was pouring rain and slid sideways underneath an 18-wheeler that was loaded down with a flooring tile. All three of my friends were severely injured, considering they were driving a Chevy Cavalier, and the 18-wheeler wheels literally drove over the top of the vehicle. This all occurred around midnight. All three of my friends suffered serious lifelong injuries. The one who was sitting where I should have been eventually committed suicide due to his constant pain from being in his 20s and walking with a cane with his broken legs, back, neck, pelvis, jaw, you name it. I still wonder today if I would have died that night and why I didn't get in the car because I had nothing better to do that night. No work the next day, and the tickets were free. My ex-girlfriend could move light objects around with her mind. No idea how she was able to do that. And it says, I really shouldn't be reading this at night. I'm about to go to sleep. Help me, I'm going to have nightmares. I witnessed a flying craft, silent that could travel miles instantaneously. Had lights like no other color. Was not RHPs, MH, fluorescent, halogen, etc. Absolutely terrifying close-up, about 50 yards away and 100 feet off the ground. So there was this time where a guy boarded a plane only to discover that it's filled with furry anime costume wearers. That's pretty. I found a broom balancing upside down at 3 a.m. while going to get a drink from the fridge. Tried for hours to balance it again like it after I took it down. Couldn't be done. I woke up from a nap to the sound of my girlfriend sobbing somewhere else in the house. I got up to see what was wrong and determined the sound was coming from downstairs. I followed the sound down the spiral staircase all the way to the finished basement. The sound was definitely coming from the little half bath at the bottom of the stairs that we rarely used. The door was closed, which it never was, and I couldn't see any light under the door, but the sound was very loud from the bottom of the stairs. It was about this time that I started to fully wake up and remember my girlfriend had been leaving for the grocery store when I started taking my nap. I could see her parking spot from one of the basement windows. She wasn't back yet. I called her name and the sobbing instantly stopped. The bathroom was empty when I finally got the courage to check. As a child, I have had more than a handful, though one stood out to me. The one that stands out to me the most was when I was 15. Can I say this was paranormal in nature? Possible. I do, however, try and think of the most logical explanation. I woke up from sleep to head to the shower in my bathroom. It was time for school. As I was in the shower, a noise so loud erupted and the door felt it was being kicked in by the police. I felt that I now had 10 cups of coffee now in my system, adrenaline pumping through my body. I noticed the towel rack was pulled right off the wooden door. The screws were warm where they touched it from the friction. I opened the door, and there was a silence in the house. Now my family, who sleeps right in 3 rooms right beside the bathroom, nobody woke up, not even my dad, who can hear a mouse pass his bed. Now I have to figure out why and what happened. The noise alone sounded as if it wasn't from this dimension. As I go back to bed, I now realize that it was 1:30 a.m., and just randomly went to the shower thinking it was time for school. I never told my parents, as it would have scared the shit out of them. This is one of many. That's pretty weird. Pretty weird little story. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed these. If you did, please leave a like, maybe subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, or even share this video with someone who also might like it. I appreciate you listening, and thank you to all the subscribers and all the viewers, and we'll talk to you later on. Bye-bye.